Are you thinking about writing a book? Well, I have exactly the group for you. You need Shine Press in your life. They have a free 30-minute consultation that answers your questions and shows you what it would look like to become a Shine Press author. They're illuminating stories and empowering authors. Go to shine-press.com to learn more.
Welcome to Productive Joy with Dr. Christie, where fun meets action.
Hi, friends. Welcome to Productive Joy. We are going to have an awful lot of fun today because I have a new friend, Dr. Hillary Cauthen. But before I introduce Hillary to you, I need your help. I need you to follow this podcast. If you're not following the podcast, then you don't know what's going on. You don't get automatic alerts. You don't know that we have really awesome guests like this one. So please do that for me. And I just want to give a quick shout out to Nian, my producer, because he is doing some pretty magical things behind the scenes to make sure that you guys get the best possible version of this podcast. Today, we are going to have an awful lot of fun. I have with me Dr. Hillary Cauthen. Dr. Hillary Cauthen is quite a couple things. Okay, she is a mom of 4 girls. She is an avid coffee drinker and also a professional nap taker. She is a shoe fanatic, hence the picture behind her if you can't see it. And so she's a self-proclaimed sneakerhead. She's a sports enthusiast. She is an author who has a great book called Hello Trauma, Our Invisible Teammate. And she's a sports psychologist, and she's here today to help us learn a little bit about ourselves. So welcome, Hillary, to Productive Joy.
Thank you so much. What a beautiful, fun intro.
Hey, I do believe in having some fun, for sure. So I didn't mention that you're a TEDxer too, so you know how to get people's attention and keep it, most definitely, but we need to convince people that they want to keep listening. So what would you say to the audience in like 30 seconds to convince them that you've got something exciting to tell them?
I mean, you are a human, and I'm here to help us all feel seen and heard and connected and help just build your best self and best life.
I love that. I think we all want to be seen and heard,
Mhm.
most definitely, and that's not always easy. So, Hillary, tell us a little bit about you. How did you get started on this journey? I know you started as an athlete very young
Mhm.
and have carried that sports theme throughout, but what got you to the point where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, athletics for sure, like most people who kind of fall in love with sport, probably was a competitive athlete, and it has shaped my foundation and just the relationships I build, the definitely the core characteristics of who I am. And I knew at 14, like this was the path I wanted to do. I wanted to be a clinical sports psychologist, which was someone who just understood the athletic mindset, that competitive drive, because I myself, as a youth athlete starting at 4, multi-sport, had different things that I went through. And I was like, man, I just wish I could speak to somebody. I wish somebody who could get me. And I, at the time, didn't want to go see a counselor, a mental health professional. I didn't think they would understand that competitive piece of me. And so I needed someone who could relate. I was like, I'll be that for athletes, and definitely took a journey in college. I was a collegiate athlete and I went through the majors and double majored in things and kind of created and carved out all of the training possible for what I wanted. And I really fell in love with mental health at the same time and saw that there was such a beautiful relationship between knowing that sport and exercise really makes us healthy and mentally well, but also that athletes struggle. And I kind of wanted to be this person that could figure out both and work on this continuum of care model for our avid high performer elite athletes to our everyday well-being humans that can just bring joy into their life through movement and exercise. And so a lot of studying, a lot of degrees, and became this entrepreneur that did not know was going to be my path, but became a business owner and I've had a lot of experiences to shape kind of the different things that I've gotten to do over the years.
But you figured out a way to get your passion and your career to match up. And I think that that's pretty impressive, especially at the age of 14. You
Yeah.
had decided. So let's rewind way back. So a 4-year-old multiple sport athlete looks like what? Like what athlete, what sports were we playing and where did we end up landing in terms of the athletic prowess?
Yeah. So 4-year-old me back in the day, Hillary, I was growing up in St. Charles, Missouri, right outside of St. Louis. Somehow, I don't know if every kid does this, parents push you in. I had an older sister. I was kind of following her footsteps at first, and I was entered into like dance. And this is a very vivid memory. It was tap, ballet, and jazz. And I remember doing this like, tap move where it's just like heel toe ball step. And that's all I was doing over and over and over again. And I was like, I am so bored. Like I'm like 4 and I don't want to be doing heel toe ball step over. Like, give me some challenge. So I remember like asking to like get more advanced. My older sister was doing cool things. And I was like, I want to like dance. They weren't having it. They were like, no, you need to progress at this certain level. And I was like, what? And I remember being in my little pink like ballet like tights and slippers. And I was asking my dad, like, Dad, I really don't want to do this. Like, I'm so bored. And he's like, we have a commitment. We signed up for the season, lessons learned, all
We
about like
started, we'll finish. Yes.
yes. So and look, I still follow the same mantra. So I understand as a parent, but as a 4-year-old, I was like, Dad, this is terrible. And I remember getting in the car and he shut the door and it hit my foot. And it was an accident, right? But he was so like traumatized that he had caused harm to me that he was like, Yep, we quit dance. You're done with dance. So I got out of that, but I share that story to realize like I knew when sport wasn't fun and what it
Ah,
didn't feel like and how I needed to be challenged. And then I got into soccer. My parents were coaches at the time. And I had a soccer teammate who was like, Hey, come join track with us in the spring. Mind you, I'm still 4. Like 4 is like, what are you doing? You don't even like really know
you're
how to do
running
anything.
track at 4. Good Lord. Okay.
So, but this is the best part. She had 6 older siblings. She had a beautiful family. And I'm just with this other 4-year-old. But mom's like, yes, bring this kid to hang out with my other 4-year-old, while the older siblings are really competitive. And we're at the Boys and Girls Club in St. Louis. And I remember running around this like asphalt parking lot for
Hmm.
my warm up. And it was like black. And there's like the Boys and Girls Club. And I'm like, what am I doing? I'm running, chasing these people in front of me that are from like 4 to 18, right? It's a USATFA U track club that like
Oh,
spans across
wow.
time. And I'm just like jogging along, like, this is track. This is what we do. And that sparked like my life. Like track became a continuous thing through the spring and summer until I got older. And then I was able to start doing cross country. We were very mindful developmentally of like the
Yeah.
miles I could put on my body. Continue playing soccer at a really high level year round. I started basketball in 5th grade. So I ended up doing more like multi-sport. And those are the 3 that I stuck to: basketball, cross country, track, and soccer. And then when we moved, I lost a lot of the opportunities of these high resource clubs and availability of like the AAU ball and the ODP soccer and the track. I went to this really small town in Maine. And so it was kind of what you had there. I wasn't gonna make my parents drive 3
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah.
Now it's normal. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, I drive my kid an hour to basketball training, so very
Gosh.
different. But so I went to this small thing and I realized like, okay, like the season's how it fit. Like I'm gonna specialize in running, I'm gonna do basketball, and I want to be a collegiate athlete. I'm gonna figure out what that would look like and my best advantageous opportunities for that. And ended up specializing in cross country and track for college and became a steeplechaser. And
Nice. Oh, that's such a fun sport to watch. So both of my kids ran cross country and track
oh,
all
cool.
through. Yes, I have twins. And so that was always fun too because it was a boy and a girl and got to watch the differences and all of this stuff. But yeah, they were long distance runners and loved it. My husband was too. I run, but not like never in school. That was that was not my space. So
I don't like running. I like racing. So it's a very different
it's a big
mentality.
difference. There is a big difference. But the steeplechase is such a cool thing to
Mhm.
watch. Like that is a whole different level of things. So do you hate when your socks are wet? Like that's what I think about is how do you keep going when your socks are wet and rubbing in your shoes?
Yeah, I mean, the idea is you jump really far out in the water so you don't actually get them wet that
Ah,
much. If they're really good, you don't. You get like a little damp. Some steeplers would not wear socks and they have these shoes that the water comes out of. You're still gonna get wet and you could potentially get blisters. It's not really the thought that you're thinking of. I think you're much more worried of like, can I get across these 5 barriers
yeah.
as fast as
Without
possible
falling
for
down
for
and
2 miles? Yeah.
okay, so yeah, so for those that don't know, the steeplechase does involve obstacles, and those obstacles include water. If the
Yes.
you're still running and you're trying to be super fast at it.
Yeah.
So that is really cool, Hillary. Okay, so obviously, sports were a big deal to you from very early on, and it became what shaped you. But you wanted to figure out the mental side of
Mhm.
what happens to athletes. Obviously, you needed somebody like that, but then what have you learned? What are some of the things that you have discovered now that you have gone on the mental side of the physical stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything that I work with my athletes or what all of us experience in general, whether you're an athlete or not, and that's why I say we're all performers. We're performers of life. We all have the same universal emotions. And that's the beauty of it. I just picked a specific domain in athletes because they are idealized. They're like superhuman. And it truly is amazing, the capabilities that our physical body can push to. And if you watch sport and you're avid at sport, you see generationally how sport has changed. People have gotten faster and stronger, and
Mhm.
especially in women's sports, we see such a surge of what they're able to do now that we can train the female body from a female lens and correctively for them, right? We can advance them at such a different level. So I'm amazed by the human qualities of what we can do. And I know society puts so much excitement and enjoyment around who these athletes could be, but they're often not allowed to show their true self. And that was the part that I experienced myself and the part that I really wanted to like bring the person within the player. I wanted the humanity of sport to be shown and the beautiful things we see when sport can bring nations together during like the wildfires that were experienced in California. And we could see that sport teams were advocating, like bringing hope during that time and saying, hey, like we're still going to play football. And, that was a common thing. We saw it with previous years with 9/11 and like, the Patriots and the Super Bowl that went on there. If you look at the historical things that happen, like sport can bring things together in states of crisis,
Mhm.
but we forget the human aspect and the struggle. And I was like, they're real. There's a lot going on in that mind. Like, let's
Yeah.
explore that and make them feel as well and positive as they can in what they're doing in their livelihood.
I love that. Okay, so I need to get your take on Simone Biles, who I think is just amazing. But the world kind of freaked out on her when she decided that she needed to take a mental break. And I think that's the side of sports that when you're a spectator, you miss, right? Because, if you like, I think about just my family yelling at the TV during a football game saying, how could you possibly miss that catch when I know there's no way they could have caught that on a bet? Like my own family couldn't do it. But somehow we think that these superhumans over here don't have any sort of, you know, anything really. They're just
Mhm.
excellent at everything. So what was your take on all of that? And did that change what you do now? Because it's been a few years.
It definitely was a marker for the sport world, for society in general. Like, she was not the first athlete to come out, right? We saw a really trend in about 2016 with Kevin Love and DeMar DeRozan in the NBA start speaking about things, and then
Yeah.
Michael Phelps. But she was the first pretty amazingly public, like most decorated athlete to actually stop participating openly
Right.
and kind of say no at the highest level, at
Right.
the epitome of what she would compete for, to stop and say, this is not okay. I think it's hard for those that are not in the sport environment and understand the nature and the complexities of what she was doing for the physical danger it could have been on her. The twisties are real, losing space and proprioception in your brain when you're trying to land and you're so high up is so dangerous. But
Sure.
as a spectator, non-sport and like, even if you're a sport enthusiast, but you're a spectator and a fan, it's hard because we're projecting this image and idealization of what we think she is and what she's capable of, and we forget that she's 20, 22, who knows what she's psychologically going through at the time or that what her life looks like outside of it. We only see the representation of her high performances. And
Mhm.
oftentimes in these elite athletes, you don't always watch their entire performing career. You see
Right.
the Olympics. You probably didn't watch US at the Worlds or any of her qualifying events up to that over the past 4-year cycle. You watch the Olympics.
Yeah.
And so your brain can't understand, I could never not show up at this high expectation performance. And then I like rewind it back a little bit and it's like, well, have you ever not shown up for your job?
Yeah.
Have you ever had to call in sick? Have you
Right.
ever
Have
had
you
to
ever had a sick day?
you know, this is a major sick day, but you know what? Like, have you ever had to have a family medical emergency for whatever reason and couldn't show up to work?
Yeah.
Like, and had to take a break because you emotionally or mentally weren't there. Like, that's what she did. She just did it on public stage.
Yeah.
But it was a shift because there's lots of judgment. There's lots of, things that people can't understand. And I'm like, yes, girl, do you? Keep showing up, keep being able to have conversations. It allowed myself and my colleagues and people in the field to bring light to the work that we do
Yeah.
and to normalize mental health, mental illness. It was a beautiful thing. Not for her. She was really struggling,
Right, it was hard, but she did the hard, right? Like, she said,
Yeah.
"No, I'm gonna protect myself, and I am going to do what's right for me," and I think there's a huge lesson in that, and, the people that listen to Productive Joy are often leaders who are trying to strategically do things differently and bring joy to the workplace. Because I think sometimes people think fun and work have to be mutually exclusive, and they don't, right? They absolutely can go together. So let's translate this into the human space because you've used the word human a couple times. And I pick up on that because I use the word human all the time. That's what we are, right? Like we are all showing up as humans. What have you learned in the sports space that translates to all of us? I'm going to guess most of it, but what's the biggest lesson that you'd like everybody listening right now to go, oh my gosh, I relate to that?
Ooh, that's tough. I mean, I would just say feel your feelings. Like everyone has feelings. And if we can learn to emotionally regulate our feelings and then be able to get yourself to utilize your emotions the best for you in that environment, we are all performers. We're all doing something in our life, whether it's being the best mom that you can be, whether it's being a spouse or the high executive CEO. We're constantly in a state of production and performance, and everybody wants to be the best that they can be. I
Mhm.
don't think I've ever met a human that's like, I can't wait to just be the terrible person and fail at everything. It's just not
No.
we're not prescribed that way. Socially, we're not like, yes, not everyone is as driven to be this go-getter, but everybody loves to succeed and perform their best and get that validation. And so I'm always about like, well, let's get in an emotional state that you can allow yourself to regulate your feelings and be vulnerable and then put yourself in the environment that you can actually shine.
Oh, I love that. That just makes good sense to me. And I think the way that you said that we're all performing is absolutely true. And not only true, something that's important to remember because when you're in a performance, you're not necessarily learning, you are performing, right? So, there's the learning zone and the performance zone. The
Yep.
learning zone is when it's low stakes and you're trying to practice like practice would be. And then the performance zone is the race, it's the event, it's the meeting, and you can't screw up then, right? Like you don't want your knee surgeon to practice when they're actually performing on you. You would prefer they do that somewhere else.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah, I think we live life in the performance zone, and that's super high stakes, and making mistakes can be detrimental. And that causes us to one, repeat the things that we don't do very well over and over and over again because we're never practicing. But two, to feel that anxiety and that fear of getting something wrong all the time. That's hard.
So hard. And, we live on this performance continuum and it's like this fear of failure, fear of evaluation constantly exists. So a lot of times people get stuck and they're like, I'm just going to do enough. I'm
Yeah.
going to be good enough.
Yeah.
And they stop themselves from being growing. And like, I love that part where you're like, we got to learn. Like we're all about this growth mindset. And it's like, how can you strive to be successful? How can you take time to reflect and learn and then do things a little bit differently?
Yeah.
And we get stuck in our own way.
Well, and it sounds like to me that you might have written a book that would help people with that. I love the title. A great title matters so much. So, Hello Trauma, Our Invisible Teammates. Tell us the impetus for the book and what we would learn if we were to pick it up.
Yeah, so I love speaking about this book, so I'll go on forever. So please
But
get about this point. It really stemmed, as you said, I did a TEDx in 2018 on the toxic culture on athletes' mental health in sport. And so I always am one to speak about the conversations that are kind of talked about quietly or behind closed doors. And I'm like, let's just shed some light on this. There's a dark side of sport, there's a dark side of life, and so I did this TEDx talking about how we can just be better in sport. And then over the years from 2018 till about 2022, I experienced a lot of different works and different sport organizations and different levels of athletes, and I was collecting all this information and, athletes were speaking out more and more, and I realized, like, okay, trauma is becoming this, like, thing. Everyone has trauma, it's this trigger thing. We also went through COVID, so we all had this different experience in life, and I was like, I need to make meaning of this for people to actually understand, and I'm gonna use sport as this microcosm society example, but really the book is for anybody, for anyone to understand, and it just helps you understand in a sport way because we like sport. So the Hello Trauma, Our Invisible Teammate, it's such a fun juxtaposition of a title. It's kind of welcoming this idea of trauma of like, hey, you exist in my life or in someone I know's life, and it's gonna be our teammate, because if we don't learn how to work with this in our life, like, it's gonna hurt us, and so this idea of, like, let's make trauma be our best teammate so we can heal and thrive versus this invisible teammate and illness and problematic issue that I have, and so the first half of the book is really an experiential learning process of helping people understand what trauma is, redefining it, and then making meaning of it. So there's very similar to like how grief and loss has stages. This is the stages of what a victim of trauma would go through. And
Mm.
it's welcoming you into that emotional context, like hello gaslighting, hello minimization, hello awkwardness, all the things that someone goes through. And it's like, hey, let's help you feel it. And then I'm gonna help you understand what your brain's doing. And then the second part is really my call to action for any of us, but using sport as that parallel of kind of saying, hey, these cultures are reinforcing this to exist if we don't get it right. And let's learn how to work with someone in this environment differently and show up differently for them and make the environments better.
Oh, that's awesome. And I would say every human on this planet needs that.
Yes, I would love it. Please.
Yes. Well, and because we're carrying around all of these big T and little t traumas that have happened to us. And if we don't deal with them, they get to take over and they don't really have permission to take over, but we give them permission to take over and cause us to react certain ways or to handle things certain ways. About a month ago, I interviewed a man named Dr. Greg Stewart, and he wrote a book called I Cubed for Couples and also I Cubed. And in it, he talks about the fact that when we're in a situation and somebody says something to us or we're experiencing something, that the trauma that we have is kind of in the basement of the house, right? But what we tend to do is we walk in the front door, we go down to the basement, we scoop up those negative feelings and we plop them into whatever situation that we're in now. And that created such a picture for me
Mhm.
of our reaction to things, right? So the trauma's there. We're not saying that it goes away or anything like that, but what we choose to allow to surface and come out into the next situation is really on us. And we get to figure out what to do with all of those feelings, right? I'm sure you deal with that a lot.
Absolutely. And to the point, like you said, like, it helps people understand that stubbing my toe is a traumatic thing to my body. That is, as you define, like a little T, right?
Yeah.
Witnessing a car accident, like we have so many different varieties of what they are. And this is kind of saying, hey, like, let's stop judging and comparing whose is worse.
Yes.
And let's just make meaning of what it is and how it's impacting my behaviors and my dynamics and help people understand, what do I actually need to help that person? And what does the person need to help themselves work through these things?
Oh, power. So much power in that. So that actually leads me to my favorite question because I love to hear all the different answers that people come up with. So you are in a specific space with sports. However, everything you're doing is hitting everything. All the humans can benefit from what you're talking about. So if you had to describe productive joy through your lens in your space, what would you do to describe productive joy? How would you describe it?
Yeah, I think it's intentionality of allowing yourself space to have stillness and find fun in the things that you're doing. And that is a lesson that I often do is like, hey, this is fun. You like what you're doing. You love it. Like, yes, it might be part of your identity or might give you the paycheck, but like, do we have do we have fun doing it? Like, does it bring you happiness? I'll never forget, and I say this in my TEDx. So if you watch it, I love it. You'll hear me quote it again. But my now 10-year-old, who's my second oldest girl, she was 4 at the time, and I was kind of getting their advice. I was like, hey, what does mom do for work?
Mm.
And she's like, well, you teach people how to be happy.
Ah,
And it just hit me in my heart of like, goodness, I really hope that is true
yeah.
because I would love to teach people on how to be happy. Like I quote Legally Blonde a lot of the time because, there's this episode where she's like, I clearly didn't kill this person. Like I was working out, right? And
Yeah.
happy people don't kill people because she's saying working out makes her happy, right? I'm quoting it all wrong, but that's the essence of it is like
Yeah.
those that work out are happy. They're not gonna obviously kill somebody. And I thought through it. It's like, gosh, like what I do is trying to help people find joy and love and happiness in their life. And I do that through a way of movement and exercise, but also just the passion of what they do. And
Yeah.
there's a misconception like we can just wake up happy. Like, no. Like when people are like, oh, you woke up on the wrong side of the bed. I'm like, well, the other side doesn't mean they're gonna be happy either. Like you have to intentionally do things that make you happy. And so that's why I said there's always an intentional pursuit to put yourself in place to allow yourself to have fun and find joy.
Yeah, because it is a choice. I believe that joy is a choice for sure. And that's why I started Productive Joy. So that's funny that your daughter said that you make people happy. I think that that's a great description of what you do. I met with a girl who is a graphic designer when I was first starting my business and trying to figure out what I did. And I kind of word vomited all the things that I did. And she looked at me and she goes, "You make work fun." I went,
I love that.
yes, yes, I want to make work fun. And so that's now the name of one of my books. And it's kind of my mantra. It's where Productive Joy came from. Although ChatGPT and I got together and that's how Make Work Fun turned into Productive Joy.
Perfect.
Well, because I didn't want it to just be about work. But the reality is, like I said, those two things are not mutually exclusive, but they're often pitted against each other, that you can't be happy and be working. You can't put those two things together, but I would fully disagree with that. And you're teaching people that you're reminding them that what they're doing is actually fun.
Yeah, and I think to your point too, like if we are happy, if my athletes are happier outside of their athletic domain and they're living a fulfilled, authentic life and they're finding happiness, they will perform better.
Yeah.
Like there's a correlation. Like, yes, we know sometimes people can feel that negative energy and boost and have great performances, but that's often short lived. That's the short side of motivation. Like long term motivation and drive and enjoyment is like when we actually have a balanced life and we feel happy in both domains. And the better they perform on the field, of course, they're going to be happier outside. And so there is this essence of like, yeah, we need to actually be intentional about finding joy in what we're doing.
No idea, right? Like we definitely need to do more of that. So, how might somebody find you, Hillary, if they were trying to get better themselves or they had a friend or family member that they thought might need your services? How would somebody find you?
Yeah, so definitely I have Instagram, Dr. C Mindset. I do a lot of fun little videos, educational things out there. We can also, our website's kind of a complicated one, but it's www.txopps.com. And or just Google my name, will pop up on Psychology Today. But yeah, I think that those ways for sure you can find me and kind of learn a little bit more and at least reach out that way.
Okay, I want to know what the TXOPPS is.
Oh yeah,
Texas
that's the long title for Texas Optimal Performance and Psychological Services.
Oh, okay. So it's an acronym.
It's my business name, yeah, but you know,
I saw Texas Oops. Is
uh,
what I saw. So
Texas ops, right? Like, you know, we kind of feel like we're spies in the field.
there you go. It is more ops than oops, but in my mind when I wrote it, I saw oops. So I could steal that if you'd like. So and at that organization, you are helping people typically one-on-one. Do you do any group settings or
We
anything?
do, yeah. So I have a beautiful team. I have 6 other practitioners in the office, and we're all trained on this performance continuum. So I have 2 mental performance consultants, and so they really work with individuals, teams, organizations on the performance optimization side. So they're more preventative in nature. They don't specialize in mental illness. And then we have 4 of our other providers where we are duly trained on this continuum that specialize in mental health and illness and the mental performance side. And so we have a lot of one-on-one individual clients. We also do a lot of like monthly mindset workshops for different sport organizations. We have some of our providers in sport teams. So it's kind of a variety that all of our providers do, which is really fun
Yeah.
and online or in person. So that's beautiful too.
Well, and I just love that we're at a space in 2025 that we recognize the value of this. Right? I grew up a long time ago. I'm 48. And when I was in school, there was no talk of any sort of mental health, let alone an athlete's mental health. Like that just wasn't a thing.
Right.
And so I'm just grateful that we as humans are now realizing, oh, there's more to this whole thing than just the physical. And I can get better physically if I'm better mentally. That's
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah, and I truly try to push that we wanna be preventative, right? Like, we are a luxury, we know that, right? Yes, we do treat some general mental illness as well, some clients that are maybe ex-athletes, or we get a lot of, like, business executives coming in and working more on traditional relationship life stuff, but, you know, I try to say, like, we are preventative nature even though we're a luxury, so we get a lot of adolescent athletes, and the parents
Mhm.
are beautiful because the parents are realizing, like, okay, my athlete would go to this person because they know sport and they know how to enhance their performance and speak the language. And that's a huge part of this kid's life. But they want to teach their kid how to have proper coping and, you know, communication skills. And as much as I say the same thing as the parent sounds different from like a cool professional.
Yeah.
So I'm so grateful for the parents who actually say, like, this is a beautiful tool to get my kid to build a relationship with a therapist at an early age and, you know, have someone in their corner for them and building that dynamic early on. So when they're later in life and they do be like, oh, I need to go to someone because I went to someone when I was 15 and that was cool.
Yeah.
Like it's just a beautiful thing that they're being able to give and provide and change the stigma around it.
That's wonderful. I am so grateful for you. And I'm so glad that you are in a space where you can help people both virtually and face to face because we don't all live in Texas.
Right.
We can't all get there to you physically, but that's pretty awesome. Well, Hillary, I have genuinely enjoyed this, and I know my listeners have too. And I am sure that they're walking away with, oh, I never thought about doing that for my team, or maybe I need to do that for my kid, or whatever. So that part is perfect. But I do have some rapid fire questions I'd like to ask you. Are
All
you up?
right. Let's
Okay.
go.
All right. First question: what's your definition of fun?
Oh, anything that makes me laugh and just kind of smile.
Laugh and smile. Okay, that works for me. Okay, how do you know that you are showing up as your authentic self?
When I feel calm and present in the moment.
Mm, good answer. Okay, how do you channel your best self on your worst days?
Music is my go-to and a really good pair of shoes.
Music and shoes. Okay, well then I have to ask, what kind of music? What would get you back on track?
It depends on the genre. Like I'm alternative, I'm country. I do have a little bit of rap that I like to listen to, so it really just depends on kind of what space I'm in.
Mm.
And then I might just pull out some really good like ballads to sing to. You can't go wrong with with some really wonderful songs to sing. So I don't have a go-to right now. I think I'm just an eclectic mix of what's the vibe that I need to have in my
Yeah.
ears today.
My husband's playlist is legitimately schizophrenic. Like I'm like, how do you go from John Mayer to, Dr. Dre and back and like not stop it?
Okay, that's me, like, I'll have, like, Benson Boone or Miles Smith, and then there's this beautiful lyricist, Ren, if you love rap and psychological heavy mental stuff, like, Ren is, like, the best lyricist I've ever heard, but if
Okay.
you listen to him, he's talking about, like, drama, mental health, schizophrenia, like, all the things, and then I'll go back to, like, Kelly Clarkson's old school jam.
You're like,
So, I'm with your
hashtag winning.
husband.
Yeah. I love it. That's perfect. Okay, last question. And this is going to be tough because you taught us a lot of things about trauma, about our feelings, about living in our feelings and being okay with it, being seen, having intentionality, and being still, all of those things, performance optimization. But people really only latch on to one major concept in situations like this. So if you wanted to leave people with one thing, what's the one thing you really want to leave people with today?
I want people to just slow down and take 5 minutes for themselves and seek that stillness because that's gonna launch them into a world of difference for their performance.
Mm. Well, and I think sometimes we think, oh my gosh, but if I stop, what'll happen? And the reality is you'll get better, not
Yes,
worse.
you will be
So,
better 5 minutes a day, I promise you.
so listeners, did you hear that? Maybe right now you just press pause and you take 5 minutes to check in on yourself and make sure you're doing okay because Dr. Cauthen said that that's going to help us have a better performance in the long run, which I think is awesome. Hillary, thank you for being here today. Thank you for sacrificing your time and your energy so that the Productive Joy listeners can learn from you. It was great.
Yes. Thank you so much.
It was fun. Okay. And for all of my listeners, you've got lots of nuggets to choose from. So pick one wisely. Definitely take 5 minutes for yourself and figure out a way today to turn fun into action.